The IRGC officer held my phone in his gloved hand. The screen was still lit. He could see everything. The Farsi Bible app, one downloaded through 3 different VPNs, the Mohabat TV bookmarks, the secret Telegram channel connecting me to other Persian Christians. His face remained calm. That's what terrified me most, not rage, calm. So, he said, setting the phone on the metal table between us. The sound echoed in that windowless room. You're a murtad. Apostate. The word hung in the air like smoke, like blood, like the end of everything. He leaned back in his chair, the kind of cheap plastic chair you'd find in any government building in Tehran. Behind him, portraits of Khamenei and Khamenei stared down at me, their eyes always watching, always judging. You know what we do with apostates in the Islamic Republic? He continued. His voice was soft, almost kind. That's how they break you, not with screams, but with whispers. I knew. Of course I knew. I'd seen the construction cranes in Valley ASR Square. I'd walked past them on my way to university. Those yellow metal arms reaching toward heaven, engineered for building but repurposed for killing. Hangings, public, televised. A warning to anyone who dared to think differently. My throat was so dry, I couldn't speak. I could only stare at my phone, at the evidence of my betrayal. Not betrayal of Islam, betrayal of the regime. In Iran, they're the same thing. He picked up my phone again, scrolling slowly. John 14 verse 6, he read aloud in Farsi. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. He looked up at me. Do you believe this? Every cell in my body screamed at me to lie, to recant, to say it was research, curiosity, a mistake. My lips parted. But let me take you back to where this all began, because you need to understand, I wasn't always this person. I wasn't always the murtad in the interrogation room. I was once a faithful Shia Muslim, a proud Persian, a son of the Islamic Revolution. I was born in Tehran, in a modest apartment building in the Sadeghi district. Not wealthy, but respectable. My father worked for the Ministry of Education. My mother stayed home, as proper Muslim women should. Every morning, the smell of saffron rice and fresh Berberi bread filled our small kitchen. My mother would brew tea in the samovar, that beautiful brass urn that had belonged to her grandmother, and we'd drink it from small Aztecan glasses with nabit, rock sugar, dissolving slowly between our teeth. On the walls, between the Persian carpets my mother had inherited and the framed calligraphy of Quranic verses, hung photographs. My grandfather shaking hands with a Revolutionary Guard commander. My uncle who died in the Iran-Iraq War, a martyr, they said, though I never met him. And my father, younger, prouder, wearing the green headband of the Basij militia. Yes. My father was Basij. For those of you outside Iran, let me explain. The Basij aren't just soldiers. They're volunteers. Ideological enforcers. They patrol the streets during protests. They break up immoral gatherings. They enforce hijab rules. They report on their neighbors, their co-workers, even their families. They are the eyes and fists of the regime. And my father was one of them. I learned early to measure his moods by the sound of his footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, slow steps meant a good day. He'd gone to the mosque, performed his prayers, felt righteous. Quick, sharp steps meant someone had angered him. A woman wearing her hijab too loosely. A young couple walking too close together. A shopkeeper selling contraband satellite dishes. Those nights, we ate in silence. My mother's hands would tremble as she served him. My sister kept her eyes on her plate. And I would sit there, trying to be invisible, trying to be the perfect Muslim son. I was good at it. Being perfect, I mean. I memorized the Quran. I prayed 5 times daily, without fail. During Muharram, the holiest month of our Shia calendar, I participated in the Ashura commemorations with passion. I beat my chest in rhythm with hundreds of other men, chanting Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein, until my sternum ached and my voice went hoarse. I wept for Imam Hussein, martyred at Karbala 13 centuries ago, his blood still the foundation of our faith. I was 15 when I first drew my own blood for Hussein. It was the 10th of Muharram, Ashura itself, the climax of our mourning. The men gathered in the Husseiniya, our community mourning hall. The air was thick with incense and sweat and something else, devotion so intense it felt physical. We formed lines. Someone began the chant. The beating began. Palms against chests. Rhythmic. Harder. Harder. My father was beside me. I wanted to make him proud. I struck myself with everything I had. Again. Again. My shirt stuck to my skin. When I looked down, red bloomed through the white fabric. My father saw. He nodded. Just once. But it was enough. I was a good Shia. A good Persian. A good son. But I was dying inside. Because here's what no one tells you about living in the Islamic Republic: everyone lives a double life. Everyone. The woman in the full black chatter who, once behind her apartment door, strips down to jeans and a tank top. The university professor who teaches Marxist economics while quoting the Quran. The teenagers who blast American hip-hop through hidden speakers, then change to revolutionary hymns when they hear footsteps. We wore masks. All of us. It was survival. My mask was simpler than most. I was the pious son. The devoted Muslim. The future defender of the faith. But inside, a question was growing. Small at first. Barely a whisper. Is this all there is? I pushed it down. Again and again. Because questions in Iran aren't just dangerous, they're lethal. You don't question the imams. You don't question the supreme leader. You don't question the revolution. You just obey. And pray that obedience fills the void. It didn't. I was 17 when I realized something was terribly, desperately wrong. It was late at night. I'd finished my prayers. I sat on my prayer rug, rosary beads in hand, and I waited. Waited for peace. For assurance. For that feeling they always talked about, the presence of Allah, the comfort of submission. Nothing. Just silence. Just me, alone in my room, staring at the names of the 12 imams written in gold calligraphy on my wall. And the terrifying thought that whispered through my mind, what if they can't hear me? What if there's no one listening? I shook my head. Astaghfirullah, God forbid. I was being tested. Shaitan was attacking my faith. I needed to pray more. Fast more. Give more. I tried. By God, I tried. But the void only grew. And then, I found something I was never supposed to find. Or maybe it found me. I thought I could keep my 2 lives separate forever. I was wrong. My brother Reza was 7 years older than me. Growing up, he was my hero. He taught me how to ride a bicycle in the alley behind our building. He helped me with my math homework. He snuck me extra pieces of gas, that Persian nougat with pistachios, when my mother wasn't looking. But when he joined the IRGC at 21, something changed. He came home for his first leave wearing the uniform, that distinct Revolutionary Guard camouflage, that patch on his shoulder bearing the emblem of a raised fist gripping a rifle emerging from the Quran. My father wept with pride. My mother prepared a feast. Gourmet sabzi, toddig with the rice crust perfectly golden, saffron chicken, every dish a celebration. Reza sat at the head of the table, and I barely recognized him. His eyes had become hard. Certain. He spoke differently now, peppered his sentences with revolutionary slogans. Death to the enemies of Islam, he'd say casually, the way you might comment on the weather. He talked about his training, about rooting out Western infiltration, about the soft war being waged against Iran through culture and ideas. They're trying to corrupt our youth, he said one evening, looking directly at me. Satellite dishes. Internet. Western music. It all seems harmless. But it's poison. Designed to make us forget who we are. Forget our values. I nodded. Said what I was supposed to say. You're right, brother. We must be vigilant. But inside, I was terrified. Because by then, I'd already started watching. It began innocently enough. Or that's what I told myself. I was 18, first year at Shahid Beheshti University studying engineering. One of my classmates, a guy named Omid, had a satellite dish hidden on his roof. Everyone had them, really, despite the ban. You just had to be careful, disguise them as water heaters or ventilation units. The Basij would raid neighborhoods sometimes, smashing dishes with hammers, but there were too many to stop them all. Omid invited a few of us over one night. My parents are visiting family in Mashhad, he said. We can watch whatever we want. We huddled in his living room, curtains drawn, volume low. We flipped through channels, BBC Persian, Voice of America, Mohabat TV with its Persian music videos and soap operas. We laughed at the programming, at how different it was from state television with its endless footage of supreme leader speeches and martyrdom documentaries. And then Omid paused on a channel I'd never seen. The logo said Mohabat TV. Love TV. The program was in Farsi. A man was speaking, middle-aged, kind face, speaking with an accent I couldn't quite place. Behind him, a simple cross. Keep flipping, someone said nervously. That's a Christian channel. Omid moved to change it. But I stopped him. Wait, I said. Just for a second. The man was talking about suffering. About pain. About feeling abandoned by God. Everything I'd been feeling but couldn't say aloud. Many of you carry wounds, he said, looking directly into the camera as if he could see into Omid's living room, as if he could see into my soul. Wounds from family. From society. From trying to be good enough, pure enough, devoted enough, and never feeling peace. I want to tell you about someone who understands that pain. His name is Isa al-Masih. Jesus the Messiah. My heart started pounding. Change it, someone said again. This time Omid did. But it was too late. Something had been planted. I started watching Mohabat TV alone, late at night, on my phone, using a VPN I downloaded through layer after layer of encryption. Every click felt like walking through a minefield. The regime monitored everything, internet traffic, search histories, app downloads. People disappeared for less. But I couldn't stop. The programs were different. They didn't scream at you like our mullahs did. Didn't threaten hellfire every sentence. They talked about love. forgiveness, grace. Concepts that sounded foreign in Farsi, like words borrowed from another language that didn't quite translate. One night, I watched a testimony. A former Muslim from Afghanistan, now Christian, talking about his conversion. He was crying as he spoke. "I thought if I died for Islam, I'd go to paradise," he said. "I was ready to be a martyr. A shaheed. But then I read the Injil, the Gospel, and I discovered that someone had already died for me. I didn't need to die for God. God died for me." The concept made no sense. God dying? Impossible. Blasphemous. But it wouldn't leave my mind. I needed to read this Injil for myself. To prove it wrong. To prove to myself that Islam was true and Christianity was the Western corruption my brother warned about. There was a bookstore in northern Tehran, in the more affluent Elahi district, that supposedly sold religious texts. I took the metro, my heart hammering the entire journey. The shop was small, dusty, tucked between a carpet seller and a jewelry store. An old man sat behind the counter reading a newspaper. "Salam," I said. "Do you have Christian books?" He looked at me over his reading glasses. "Why would you want that?" "Academic research," I lied. "Comparative religion." He studied me for a long moment. Too long. Then he shook his head. "Used to carry some. Not anymore. Too much trouble." I left empty-handed but not defeated. If I couldn't buy it, I'd download it. That night, through my VPN, through Tor browser, through every security measure I knew, I found it. The Injil in Persian. I downloaded it to my phone, buried it in a folder within a folder, disguised as lecture notes. And I started reading. I expected fairy tales. Western propaganda. I expected to laugh at it, to feel my faith strengthened by comparison. Instead, I found words that cut me open. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11 verse 28. I was weary. So weary of performing. Of pretending. Of beating my chest until it bled and feeling nothing. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. John 3 verse 16. Loved the world? Allah didn't love, Allah demanded. Obedience. Submission. 5 prayers. Fasting. Hajj. An endless checklist of requirements that never, ever felt like enough. There is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Romans 8 verse 1. No condemnation. I had lived my entire life under condemnation. From my father. From the mullahs. From the regime. From Allah himself, who kept a ledger of every sin, every failure, every impure thought. I read late into the night, phone hidden under my blanket, blue light washing over my face. I read the Sermon on the Mount. The parables. The crucifixion. And something inside me began to crack. I became obsessed. Every free moment, I was reading. At university between classes, hiding in the library. At home when my family thought I was studying engineering textbooks. I watched more Mohabat TV programs. Downloaded sermons. Found a website with Persian Christian worship music. I was so careful. Or so I thought. It was a Thursday afternoon. My last class had been cancelled, so I came home early. My mother was out shopping. My father was at the mosque. My sister was at her friend's house. I thought I was alone. I sat on my bed, earphones in, listening to a worship song in Farsi. Isa, Tu Zabai, Jesus, you are beautiful. The melody was simple, haunting. Nothing like our chanted prayers. This was personal, intimate, like singing to someone who actually cared. I didn't hear my brother come home. I didn't hear him climb the stairs. I didn't hear my bedroom door open. But I felt his presence. That sudden awareness that you're being watched. I looked up. Reza stood in the doorway, still in his IRGC uniform. He'd come home for the weekend. He was staring at my phone. I'd been so absorbed in the music that I hadn't locked the screen. The Christian website was clearly visible, the cross logo, the Farsi text, the worship song title. Time stopped. What? He said slowly, is that? I yanked out my earphones. Locked my phone. Too late. Far too late. Nothing. Just. Let me see your phone. Not a request. An order. The voice he used on suspects, on enemies of the state. Reza, it's not. Now. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. I tried to close the app, but he grabbed the phone from me. His face went from confusion to shock to something worse. Disgust. He scrolled through my browser history. Every Christian website I'd visited despite clearing it regularly. The VPN had kept a log. The downloaded Injil in my files. The Mohabat TV bookmarks. Is this? His voice was barely a whisper. Is this a Bible? I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. He looked up at me. My brother. My hero. And I saw the exact moment he stopped seeing me as family and started seeing me as enemy. You're Christian? Not a question. An accusation. A verdict. Reza, let me explain. You're a murtad. He said the word like he was spitting poison. An apostate. A traitor. In my own house. My own brother. Please, if you just listen. He stepped toward me, and I flinched. I'd never feared my brother before. Now I was terrified. Do you know what they do to people like you? He said. Do you know what I've done to people like you? Yes. I knew. I'd heard his stories. Arrests. Interrogations. Evan prison. Ward 209. I can't believe this. He ran his hand through his hair, pacing my small room like a caged animal. My own brother. How long? How long have you been infected with this? I'm not infected, I said, finding my voice. I'm just searching for truth. Wrong answer. He got very still. Very quiet. And that's when I knew real fear. You're searching for truth, he said softly. The truth is the Quran. The truth is the Prophet, peace be upon him. The truth is the revolution. Everything else is lies. Western lies. Satan's lies. He held up my phone. I should turn this in right now. Take you to headquarters myself. Do you understand that? I understood. I understood perfectly. But you're my brother, he continued, voice breaking. So I'm going to give you a choice. One choice. You delete all of this. Every app. Every file. Every trace of this Christian poison. You never speak of it again. You go to the mosque with Baba tomorrow and you pray. And we forget this ever happened. He stepped closer. Or I report you. Tonight. And you know what happens after that. The cranes. The trials. The families forced to watch. The graves in Beheshti Zahra cemetery marked only with numbers, not names, because apostates don't deserve names. 24 hours, he said. You have 24 hours to decide if you want to live. He threw my phone on the bed and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Just closed it quietly. Somehow that was worse. I sat there in the afternoon light, dust motes floating in the air, and I realized my life had just split into before and after. Before, when I was searching in secret. After, when I'd been discovered. And I had less than one day to choose between Jesus and my life. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every sound in the apartment made me jump. My father's footsteps in the hallway. My mother moving around the kitchen. The muezzin's call to prayer drifting through the window at dawn. Everything felt like a countdown. 24 hours. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling, at the glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck up there when I was 10. Back when the universe seemed full of wonder instead of threat. Back when I believed Allah was up there somewhere, watching over me with mercy. Now I didn't know what to believe. My phone sat on my nightstand. Reza had given it back to me, a test, maybe. To see if I'd run. To see if I'd tell anyone. But who would I tell? I had no one. The Christian websites I'd visited were anonymous. The people in the Mohabat TV programs were abroad, beyond reach, might as well have been on another planet. I picked up my phone. Unlocked it. Looked at the Injil app one more time. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Matthew 16 verses 24 to 25. Lose my life. Find my life. The words swirled in my head until they lost meaning. I deleted the app. Then I deleted the worship songs. The bookmarks. The downloaded sermons. Every trace. Every breadcrumb that could lead to my death. My finger hovered over the final delete button. The browser history. The VPN logs. The last evidence that I'd ever questioned, ever searched, ever found something my soul recognized as true. I pressed delete. And something inside me died. Friday came. Jummah prayer. The most important prayer of the week. My father woke me early, though I hadn't slept anyway. Get ready, he said from my doorway. We're going to the mosque. He didn't know. Reza hadn't told him. Yet. My brother's ultimatum was clear: prove yourself today, or face the consequences. I performed wudu, the ritual washing, like a zombie. Water over hands. Water over face. Water over arms and feet. Cleansing the outside while the inside rotted. We walked to the mosque, my father and I. He was in a good mood, praising Allah for the beautiful morning, for his sons, for living in an Islamic republic where men could pray without persecution. The irony cut like glass. The mosque was full. Hundreds of men, shoes piled at the entrance, prayer rugs touching prayer rugs. The smell of cheap cologne and sweat and old carpet. The Imam began his khutbah, his sermon, and I tried to focus. Tried to feel something. He spoke about loyalty. About the enemies of Islam, America, Israel, the hypocrites within our own society who pretended to be Muslim but secretly worshipped the West. He spoke about the coming of the Mahdi, the hidden 12th Imam who would return to establish justice, to destroy the infidels, to purify the world. We must be ready, the Imam thundered. We must be pure. We must root out the munafiqun, the hypocrites, from among us. They are like cancer. They must be cut out before they spread. Everyone around me nodded. Murmured agreement. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. I looked around at their faces. True believers. Real faith. Or were they all like me? All pretending? All dying inside? The prayer began. We stood shoulder to shoulder, row after row. We bowed. We prostrated. Foreheads to the ground, submitting, submitting, always submitting. I pressed my forehead against the carpet and I prayed. Not the formal words. Not the required recitations. But from somewhere deep and desperate. Allah, if you're there, if you can hear me, please. Please give me a sign. Give me peace. Give me something. I'm so tired. I'm so lost. I don't know what's true anymore. I don't know who you are. Please. Please answer me. Silence. Just the shuffle of bodies around me, rising from prostration. The Imam's voice continuing the prayer. The void in my chest growing wider, darker, deeper. Nothing. No peace. No answer. No presence. Just ritual. Empty, hollow ritual. We finished. Filed out. My father clapped me on the shoulder. Good to pray together, Pezaram. This is how it should be. Father and son before Allah. I smiled. Nodded. And wanted to scream. That afternoon was the first of Muharram. The beginning of the mourning period leading up to Ashura, the 10th day, when we'd commemorate Imam Hussein's martyrdom at Karbala. In Iran, Muharram isn't just religious, it's political. It's social. It's everything. The entire country drapes itself in black. Banners hang from every building showing the tragedy of Karbala, the betrayal of Hussein, the blood of the martyrs. The regime uses it too, conflating Hussein's fight against tyranny with their own revolution, turning ancient grief into modern propaganda. Those who fought against Hussein are like those who fight against the Islamic Republic, the speeches always said. And we know what happened to them. Divine punishment. The message was clear. Oppose the regime, and you're opposing the imams themselves. That evening, the neighborhood Husseiniya, our mourning hall, was packed. Men in black. Boys as young as 5 learning to beat their chests. The smell of chai and dates and sweat. Black flags hanging from the ceiling, calligraphy naming the imams, the martyrs, the heroes of Shia Islam. The Mahdi, the eulogy reciter, began his recitation. Not spoken. Chanted. Wailed. A haunting, melodic lament that made grown men weep. O Hussein, grandson of the Prophet, abandoned in the desert, thirsty, bleeding, your enemies surrounded you, even your infant son they murdered, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. The chest beating began. Palms against hearts. The rhythm. Steady. Building. Faster. Harder. I joined in. What else could I do? I beat my chest with everyone else. I chanted with everyone else. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. But I felt nothing. Last year, I'd wept during these ceremonies. Real tears. Real grief. I'd connected to the tragedy, to the injustice, to the martyrdom. It meant something. Now. Nothing. Just the physical pain of striking myself. Just the sound of my own voice parroting words I no longer believed. I looked around at the other men. My father, tears streaming down his face, lost in devotion. My brother Reza, who'd come to watch me, making sure I performed correctly. Neighbors. Friends. All of them crying. All of them passionate. And me. Dry-eyed. Empty. Dead inside. What's wrong with me? I thought. Why can't I feel this anymore? The Mada''s chant grew more intense. The story reached its climax, Hussein's final moments, surrounded by enemies, fighting for truth against overwhelming tyranny, martyred for righteousness. If you believe in Hussein, the Mada called out, show me. The chest beating became violent. Men stripped off their shirts. The slap of flesh on flesh filled the room. Some men brought out chains, zanjir, and began striking their backs. The sound. The intensity. The fervor. I beat my chest until I saw spots. Until pain radiated through my ribs. Until I thought maybe if I tried hard enough, if I hurt enough, I'd feel something again. Nothing. Just pain. Physical pain. But not the spiritual connection. Not the presence. Not the peace. The ceremony ended hours later. We filed out into the night, exhausted, hoarse. My father put his arm around me. You did well tonight, he said. Hussein would be proud. Hussein. A man who died 1300 years ago. We built our entire faith on his death. On grief. On blood. On martyrdom. And suddenly I realized, we worshipped death. We celebrated death. We prepared for death. But Jesus offered life. The thought came unbidden. Unwanted. Dangerous. I pushed it away. The days crept by. Muharram continued. Every evening, more ceremonies. More chest beating. More wailing for Hussein. My body went through the motions. My soul screamed in silence. I tried to be a good Muslim again. I really did. I prayed the 5 daily prayers with extra focus, reciting every word carefully, trying to feel all his presence. Nothing. I read the Quran in Arabic, even though I barely understood it. I read the Farsi translation. Beautiful words. Poetry. But they didn't touch the void. I fasted. Not Ramadan, that was months away, but voluntary fasting. Maybe hunger would bring spiritual clarity. It brought lightheadedness and irritability. Nothing else. I went to the tomb of Abdal-Azim in the city of Ray, south of Tehran. One of our sacred sites. I circled the tomb with other pilgrims, touched the silver-covered walls, whispered prayers. People around me were weeping, overcome with spiritual emotion. I felt like a tourist in my own faith. At night, alone in my room, I'd stare at the wall and bargain with Allah. Just give me a sign. Anything. A dream. A feeling. A whisper in my heart that you're there, that Islam is true, that I'm not going insane. Please. The silence was deafening. And then a more terrible thought crept in. What if Allah was answering? What if the silence itself was the answer? What if I was praying to someone, something, that didn't care? Or didn't exist at all? No. No, I couldn't think that. That way was madness. That way was hell. That way was apostasy. But the thought wouldn't leave. I started having panic attacks. They'd come without warning. In class. On the metro. At home. My chest would tighten. My heart would race. I'd feel like I was dying, drowning, suffocating. I couldn't tell anyone. Couldn't see a therapist, they were government monitored, and admitting spiritual doubt was dangerous. Couldn't tell my family. Couldn't tell friends. I was utterly, completely alone. One night, the panic hit so hard I thought I was having a heart attack. I stumbled to the bathroom, ran cold water, splashed my face. Looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the person staring back. Hollow eyes. Gaunt face. I'd lost weight. I looked haunted. What's happening to me? I whispered to my reflection. My reflection didn't answer. I slid down the bathroom wall, sat on the cold tile floor, and for the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. Not for Hussein. Not for the martyrs. For me. For the prison I was trapped in. For the faith that had become a cage. For the truth I'd tasted and been forced to spit out. I cried until I had nothing left. And then, sitting on that bathroom floor at 3 a.m, I did something I swore I'd never do again. I prayed to Jesus. Not a long prayer. Not a proper one. Just 3 words, whispered into the darkness. Jesus, help me. Nothing happened. No light. No voice. No sudden peace. Just me, alone on a bathroom floor in Tehran, at the end of myself. I didn't know it then, but that was exactly where I needed to be. Because when you've lost everything, your faith, your family's trust, your certainty, your very self, there's nowhere left to fall. And sometimes falling is the only way to find solid ground. The next day, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to access the Bible again. I know how that sounds. After everything, after Reza's threat, after deleting everything, after my desperate attempts to be a good Muslim again, I was going to do the one thing that could get me killed. It was insane. Suicidal, even. But I couldn't breathe anymore. For 3 weeks, I'd tried to force myself back into Islam. I'd performed every ritual, recited every prayer, attended every ceremony. And I'd felt nothing but emptiness. Not just absence of feeling, active, crushing emptiness. Like my soul was slowly suffocating. That whispered prayer on the bathroom floor, Jesus, help me, had opened something. Or maybe it had simply acknowledged what I'd been running from. I couldn't unknow what I'd read. Couldn't unfeel what I'd felt when I first encountered those words in the Injil. I needed to know the truth. Even if the truth killed me. So I started over. But this time, more carefully. I bought a new phone. Used. Paid cash. Registered it under a fake name from a street vendor who didn't ask questions. I installed VPN software downloaded at an internet cafe, not on my home network. I used Tor browser. I took every precaution I could think of. And late at night, when my family slept, I began searching again. The first night, I just stared at the screen for an hour. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The fear was physical, sweat on my palms, heart racing, that metallic taste of terror in my mouth. They're watching, a voice in my head screamed. The Savama monitors everything. They have algorithms. They know. They already know. But another voice, quieter, steadier, whispered, but what if they don't? What if this is your only chance to find truth? I typed, Injil Farsi. The results loaded. Dozens of websites. Persian Christian sites, based abroad where they couldn't be touched. I clicked on one. The Gospel of John appeared on my screen. In beautiful, flowing Farsi script. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1 verse 1. I'd read this before, but it hit differently now. After 3 weeks of trying and failing to find Allah in the Quran, after beating my chest until it bruised for Hussein, after the crushing silence of unanswered prayers. The Word was God. Not just words from God, like the Quran claimed to be. The Word was God. Jesus wasn't just a prophet. He was. I kept reading. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1 verses 4 to 5. Light. In darkness. That's what I needed. What I'd been searching for in all those black-draped mourning ceremonies. Light. I read for hours that night. John's Gospel. Then Matthew. Then Luke. The words washed over me like water in the desert. I was so thirsty. I hadn't realized how thirsty until I started drinking. Over the next weeks, I developed a routine. I'd live my normal life during the day, attend classes at university, pray with my family, avoid Ray's suspicious glances. But at night, I'd lock my door, take out my secret phone, and enter another world. I watched Mohabat TV again. Testimony after testimony of Iranians, Afghans, Tajiks who'd left Islam for Christianity. Each story was different, but they all had something in common. They'd found what I was looking for. Peace. Purpose. Presence. One testimony shook me to my core. An older man, maybe 60, sitting in what looked like a modest apartment somewhere in Europe. He spoke Farsi with a Tehran accent. He'd been a mullah. A religious scholar. He'd memorized the entire Quran. He'd taught Islam for 30 years. I knew Islam inside and out, he said, eyes distant with memory. Every hadith. Every ruling. Every interpretation. And I'll tell you something, I never had peace. Never. I was always afraid. Afraid I hadn't prayed correctly. Afraid my wudu wasn't valid. Afraid of the day of judgment when Allah would weigh my deeds, and what if I wasn't good enough? What if the scale tipped the wrong way? He leaned toward the camera. Islam keeps you in fear. That's how it controls you. Fear of hell. Fear of Allah's anger. Fear, fear, fear. But when I read the Injil, I discovered something that changed everything. The Apostle John wrote, "There is no fear in love. But perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love." He smiled. Actually smiled. God doesn't want you afraid. He wants you loved. That was the revelation that broke me. Jesus didn't come to judge me. He came to save me. Not because I earned it. Not because I was good enough. But because he loved me. Just loved me. I had to pause the video. My hands were shaking. That was it. That was exactly it. My entire life had been governed by fear. Fear of my father's disappointment. Fear of the regime. Fear of Allah's anger. Fear of not being good enough, pure enough, devoted enough. But Jesus. I went back to the Injil. Found the verse the former mullah mentioned. 1 John chapter 4. I read the whole passage. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. There is no fear in love. but perfect love drives out fear. 1 John 4 verses 16 and 18. God is love. Not God has love. Not God shows love sometimes. God is love. His very nature. His essence. I thought about Allah. The 99 names we memorized: Al-Jabbar, the Compeller, Al-Qahar, the Subduer, Al-Muntakim, the Avenger. Powerful names. Fearsome names. But not loving names. Sure, there was Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, the merciful, the compassionate. But his mercy always felt conditional. Dependent on your performance. Your submission. Jesus offered something different. Something that didn't make sense to my Islamic worldview but sang to my suffocating soul. Unconditional love. I became hungry for more. Not just the Gospels, but the rest of the New Testament. I read Acts, the story of the early church. I read Paul's letters. Romans. Ephesians. Colossians. Every page dismantled something I'd been taught. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. Ephesians 2 verses 8 to 9. Not by works. Salvation wasn't earned. It was a gift. Free. Undeserved. My mind reeled. In Islam, everything was works. 5 pillars. 6 articles of faith. Endless rules about halal and haram, about ritual purity, about proper behavior. Your entire life was an exam you could fail at any moment. But Christianity said, the test is already passed. Jesus took it for you. You just have to accept the result. It seemed too good to be true. Too easy. And yet, wasn't that what my soul had been crying out for? Not another checklist. Not another ritual. But acceptance. Rest. Peace. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11 verse 28. I'd read that verse during my first exploration. It hit even harder now. After Muharram. After beating my chest until it bruised. After praying 5 times daily with perfect form and feeling nothing. After trying so hard to earn Allah's favor and finding only silence. Jesus wasn't offering more work. He was offering rest, but intellectual knowledge wasn't enough. I needed to understand this properly. Deeply. I needed to know if this was truth or just beautiful lies that appealed to my weakness. I found a website, one of the Persian Christian sites, that had a study section. Systematic theology. Apologetic. Arguments for Christianity. I devoured it all. I read about the historical evidence for Jesus. The manuscript evidence for the New Testament. The eyewitness accounts. The archaeological confirmations. The documentary reliability. I read Christian responses to Islamic objections. Did the Bible predict Muhammad? No, and here's why. Was the Bible corrupted? No, and here's the evidence. Did Jesus actually claim to be God? Yes, and here are the passages. I read about the Trinity. That concept that seemed like mathematical nonsense. How can 3 equal 1? But the more I studied, the more it made sense. Not 3 gods. 1 God in 3 persons. Like how I could be a son, a brother, and a friend, 3 roles, 1 person. Imperfect analogy, but it helped. I read about the crucifixion. Islam taught that Jesus never died, that someone else was substituted at the last moment, that Allah rescued him. But the historical evidence was overwhelming. Roman crucifixion. Multiple sources. The apostles' transformation from terrified deserters to bold martyrs. Something happened. Something real. And I read about the resurrection. The empty tomb. The eyewitness accounts. 500 people seeing the risen Christ. The fact that no one, not the Romans, not the Jewish leaders, not anyone, could produce a body to stop the early church. If Jesus rose from the dead, everything changed. Islam's claims collapsed. Muhammad's authority vanished. The Quran's denial became irrelevant. If Jesus rose from the dead, he was exactly who he claimed to be. God. Savior. Lord. One night, I found myself on a page with worship songs in Farsi. I hesitated. Music had gotten me caught the first time. But I needed to hear it. I plugged in my earphones and pressed play. The melody was simple. A woman's voice, clear and pure, singing over gentle guitar. I say, to Imam Hasti, Jesus, you are my Imam to Rabari man Hasti, you are my guide man be to Tazim Maikanam, I bow to you Kode man, my God. Tears streamed down my face. She was using Islamic terminology, Imam, guide, but directing it at Jesus. It was subversive. Beautiful. True. Jesus was my Imam. Not Ali. Not Hussein. Not the hidden Mahdi who may or may not exist. Jesus. Present. Real. Alive. The song continued. To Mano Azad Kardi, you set me free Az Tariki B Noor, from darkness to lightman to Garbandi Tars Nistam, I am no longer a slave to Firman Farzandi tu Hastam, I am your child. Child. Not slave. Not servant. Child. That's what the Injil called believers, children of God. Adopted. Beloved. Heirs. In Islam, we were always abd, slaves. Even the prophets. Submission was everything. But Jesus offered sonship. Daughterhood. Family. I listened to that song on repeat until dawn. And somewhere in those hours, in my small room in Tehran with my illegal phone and my dangerous knowledge, I crossed a line. I stopped researching Christianity and started believing it. But believing in private was one thing. What came next, what Jesus called me to next, would require courage I didn't have. Or so I thought. Because I didn't yet know that Jesus doesn't just call you and leave you to figure it out alone. He comes to you. And he was about to come to me in a way I never expected. Ashura was approaching. The 10th of Muharram. The holiest, most intense day of the Shia calendar. Every year, I'd anticipated it with reverence. The culmination of our mourning. The day we remembered Imam Hussein's martyrdom in the most visceral, passionate way possible. The day when devotion reached its peak and the boundary between past and present seemed to dissolve. We weren't just remembering Karbala, we were reliving it. But this year was different. This year, I'd been secretly reading the Injil for weeks. This year, I'd listened to Christian worship music. This year, my soul had tasted something my faith couldn't provide. And this year, I was terrified. Because Ashura wasn't just religious theater. It was a test. A public demonstration of loyalty. To the imams. To the faith. To the regime. If I couldn't perform convincingly, if anyone detected my doubt, Reza would know. My father would know. And I'd be finished. The day before Ashura, my father called a family meeting. We gathered in our small living room, my parents, Reza, who'd come home specifically for Ashura, my sister Miriam, and me. My mother served tea in the delicate Estacan glasses, the kind we used for important occasions. My father spoke with unusual gravity. "Tomorrow is Ashura," he began. "The day our Imam gave everything for truth. For justice. For standing against tyranny. His sacrifice is the foundation of our faith. Of our revolution. Of who we are as Persians, as Shia, as Muslims." He looked directly at me. "I expect every member of this family to honor that sacrifice. Properly. With full devotion. The neighborhood ceremony begins at sunset. We will all attend." "Of course, Baba," Miriam said quickly. She was always the obedient one. "Of course," I echoed. But Reza was watching me. He'd been watching me for weeks, ever since that day he found the Bible on my phone. I'd deleted everything, performed my prayers, attended the mourning ceremonies. But his suspicion hadn't faded. If anything, it had intensified. "Ashura separates the true believers from the hypocrites," Reza said, still looking at me. "Tomorrow, we'll all see who truly loves Hussein." The threat was clear. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, dreading tomorrow. I'd have to participate. Fully. Beat my chest until it bruised. Maybe even take up the zanjir, the chains, and strike my back until it bled. Prove my devotion. Prove my loyalty. Prove I was still Muslim. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I knew it. God knew it. And pretending felt like betrayal. Not of Islam, but of Jesus. Of the truth I'd discovered. Of my own soul. Around 2 a.m, I gave up trying to sleep. I got up quietly, retrieved my secret phone from its hiding place behind a loose baseboard, and locked my bedroom door. I needed something. Guidance. Strength. Anything. I opened the Injil app and randomly clicked on a passage. Matthew chapter 10 appeared on the screen. Jesus speaking to his disciples about persecution. "Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell." Matthew 10 verse 28. My hands trembled holding the phone. "Whoever acknowledges me before others, I will also acknowledge before my Father in heaven. But whoever disowns me before others, I will disown before my Father in heaven." Matthew 10 verses 32 to 33. The words cut deep. Jesus was asking for public acknowledgement. Not just private belief. Not just secret reading. But open confession. Impossible. In Iran, that meant death. But denying him. I thought about tomorrow. About beating my chest for Hussein. About chanting prayers to the imams. About performing devotion to a faith I no longer believed. Wasn't that denying Jesus? Wasn't that exactly what he warned against? I closed my eyes, overwhelmed. "Jesus," I whispered into the darkness. "I don't know what to do. I can't confess you publicly, they'll kill me. But I can't deny you either. I need you. I need to know this is real. That you're real. That I'm not losing my mind. Please. Please show me." I waited. Nothing. I turned off the phone, hit it again, and climbed back into bed. Exhausted. Defeated. Sleep finally came around 4 a.m. And then. He came. I was walking through Tehran. But not the Tehran I knew. The streets were empty. Silent. No traffic. No pollution. No propaganda murals. Just clean streets bathed in strange, golden light. I knew I was dreaming. But it felt more real than any dream I'd ever had. Hyper-real. Every detail sharp and vivid. I walked past familiar landmarks. Azadi Tower. Valley Asr Square with its cranes. The murals of martyrs. But they were all fading. Like watercolors running in rain. The images of Khomeini and Khamenei dissolved. The revolutionary slogans melted away. Even the cranes, those instruments of execution, were crumbling to rust. And in their place, gardens were growing. Flowers I'd never seen. Trees with silver leaves. The air smelled like spring, like Nowruz, Persian New Year, but more intense. More alive. I kept walking, drawn forward by something I couldn't name. And then I saw him. Standing in the middle of Valley Asr Square, where the cranes should be. Where the Death to America graffiti should be. Where the Basij should patrol. A man. He was Middle Eastern. Not European with blonde hair and blue eyes like some Christian pictures I'd seen. Not distinctly Arab either. He looked. He could have been Persian. Dark hair. Olive skin. Average height. Ordinary features. But his presence was anything but ordinary. Light emanated from him. Not blinding. Warm. Golden. Like the sun at dawn, strong enough to chase away darkness but gentle enough not to hurt your eyes. And the authority. I can't explain it. He stood there, simply stood there, and I knew, I was in the presence of absolute power. The kind that created galaxies. The kind that held atoms together. The kind that could speak universes into existence or unmake them with a word. But also, love. Overwhelming, crushing, beautiful love. My knees buckled. I fell to the ground. Not forced. I couldn't stand in that presence. Couldn't remain upright. Who are you? I whispered. He smiled. Kind eyes. Patient. Like he'd been waiting for me to ask that question my entire life. And he spoke. In Farsi. Perfect, flowing Farsi. Not Arabic. Not English. My language. My mother tongue. Pezaram, he said. My son. You know who I am. Tears flooded my eyes. Isa? Jesus? I am. Not yes. Not correct. I am. The same words God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. The name. The claim. The declaration of divinity. You've been searching for me, he continued, stepping closer. And you've been afraid of what finding me would cost. I nodded, unable to speak. I know your fear, he said gently. I know your family. I know Reza's threats. I know tomorrow's Ashura and what you're being forced to do. I know everything. He knelt down, God knelt down, to my level. Eye to eye. And I want you to know something. I am not a foreign God. I am not Western. I am not your enemy. I was born in the Middle East. I spoke a Semitic language. I understand honor and shame. I understand family loyalty. I understand persecution. His hand touched my shoulder. Physical. Solid. Real. I am not asking you to betray your people or your culture. I'm asking you to find your true identity. Not as a slave to fear. Not as a performer of rituals. But as my beloved son. As one who is free. But tomorrow, my voice cracked. Tomorrow they'll expect me to mourn Hussein. To beat my chest. To prove my loyalty. And if I don't, I know, Jesus said. And I'm not asking you to become a martyr tomorrow. That's not faith, that's suicide. I'm asking you to trust me. To follow my timing, not your fear. He stood and extended his hand to me. You asked if this is real. If I'm real. Look at me. Touch me. I'm not a hidden imam waiting to return someday. I'm not a dead martyr you mourn. I am the living God. Here. Now. With you. I reached out. Touched his hand. Warm. Solid. Real. You've been taught to seek martyrdom, he said. To glorify death. But I came to bring life. Abundant life. Yes, following me may cost you everything. But what you gain, what I give you, is worth infinitely more. He pulled me to my feet. The Mahdi you wait for? He's a shadow. A hope. A maybe. I am here. The salvation you seek through endless works. It's already finished. I finished it on the cross. The peace you've been searching for in ritual and performance? It's a gift. Free. You just have to receive it. Tears streamed down my face. I want to. I want to receive it. But I'm so afraid. Reza will kill me. My father will disown me. I'll lose everything. You'll lose everything false, Jesus interrupted gently. And gain everything true. I never promised following me would be easy. I promised it would be worth it. He placed his hand over my heart. You've been dying inside for years. Suffocating under religious obligation. Crushed by fear. Haunted by doubt. Tomorrow, you'll face Ashura, a day devoted to mourning death. But I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you've met the living God. Remember that death doesn't have the final word. Remember that I am with you. Always. The light around him intensified. The gardens in Tehran grew brighter. I heard singing, the same worship song I'd listened to, but not from a recording. Live. Angelic. Beautiful. One more thing, Jesus said. You asked for a sign that this is real. That you're not losing your mind. When you wake up, look at your pillow. You'll know. My pillow? He smiled. You'll know. The light became overwhelming. I had to close my eyes. Pezaram, his voice came one last time. I love you. Not because you earned it. Not because you're good enough. But because you're mine. And nothing, not Reza, not the IRGC, not even death itself, can snatch you from my hand. I woke up gasping. My room was dark. The clock showed 5:47 a.m. Dawn approaching. The muezzin would call soon. But something was different. I could smell it. That same smell from the dream. Like spring. Like flowers. Like life. I sat up quickly and looked at my pillow. There, on the white pillowcase, was a wet stain. Not sweat. I touched it. Cool. Fresh. Tears. But not my tears. These were on the outside of the pillow. Where my face had been pressed. And I hadn't been crying when I fell asleep. I'd been too tired, too defeated for tears. I touched the wet spot again, and the smell intensified. Not perfume. Not rosewater. Something otherworldly. Something that shouldn't exist in Tehran, in my locked room, in the middle of the night. Evidence. Physical, tangible evidence that I hadn't just had a dream. That he'd actually been here. Jesus had been in my room. I fell to my knees beside my bed, and for the first time in my life, I prayed a prayer that wasn't ritual. Wasn't performance. Wasn't trying to earn anything. Jesus, I whispered, barely able to speak through tears. I believe. I believe you're real. I believe you're alive. I believe you love me. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how to navigate tomorrow or Reza or any of this. But I'm yours. I'm completely yours. Whatever it costs. However long it takes. I'm yours. Peace flooded through me. That peace I'd been searching for. Not absence of fear, I was still terrified of tomorrow. But peace underneath the fear. Solid. Unshakable. The peace that passes understanding that Paul wrote about in Philippians. The muezzin's call echoed across Tehran. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. God is greater. And I smiled through my tears. Because yes, God was greater. Greater than Islam. Greater than the regime. Greater than fear. But it wasn't Allah. It was Jesus. And he'd just proven that he was real, he was alive, and he was with me. Pezaram, he said. My son. You know who I am. Tears flooded my eyes. ISA? Jesus? I am. Not yes. Not correct. I am. The same words God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. The name. The claim. The declaration of divinity. You've been searching for me, he continued, stepping closer. And you've been afraid of what finding me would cost. I nodded, unable to speak. I know your fear, he said gently. I know your family. I know Reza's threats. I know tomorrow's Ashura and what you're being forced to do. I know everything. He knelt down, God knelt down, to my level. Eye to eye. And I want you to know something. I am not a foreign God. I am not Western. I am not your enemy. I was born in the Middle East. I spoke a Semitic language. I understand honor and shame. I understand family loyalty. I understand persecution. His hand touched my shoulder. Physical. Solid. Real. I am not asking you to betray your people or your culture. I'm asking you to find your true identity. Not as a slave to fear. Not as a performer of rituals. But as my beloved son. As one who is free. But tomorrow, my voice cracked. Tomorrow they'll expect me to mourn Hussein. To beat my chest. To prove my loyalty. And if I don't, I know, Jesus said. And I'm not asking you to become a martyr tomorrow. That's not faith, that's suicide. I'm asking you to trust me. To follow my timing, not your fear. He stood and extended his hand to me. You asked if this is real. If I'm real. Look at me. Touch me. I'm not a hidden imam waiting to return someday. I'm not a dead martyr you mourn. I am the living God. Here. Now. With you. I reached out, touched his hand. Warm, solid, real. You've been taught to seek martyrdom, he said. To glorify death. But I came to bring life. Abundant life. Yes, following me may cost you everything. But what you gain, what I give you, is worth infinitely more. He pulled me to my feet. The Mahdi you wait for? He's a shadow. A hope. A maybe. I am here. The salvation you seek through endless works. It's already finished. I finished it on the cross. The peace you've been searching for in ritual and performance? It's a gift. Free. You just have to receive it. Tears streamed down my face. I want to. I want to receive it. But I'm so afraid. Reza will kill me. My father will disown me. I'll lose everything. You'll lose everything false, Jesus interrupted gently. And gain everything true. I never promised following me would be easy. I promised it would be worth it. He placed his hand over my heart. You've been dying inside for years. Suffocating under religious obligation. Crushed by fear. Haunted by doubt. Tomorrow, you'll face Ashura, a day devoted to mourning death. But I want you to remember this moment. Remember that you've met the living God. Remember that death doesn't have the final word. Remember that I am with you. Always. The light around him intensified. The gardens in Tehran grew brighter. I heard singing, the same worship song I'd listened to, but not from a recording. Live. Angelic. Beautiful. One more thing, Jesus said. You asked for a sign that this is real. That you're not losing your mind. When you wake up, look at your pillow. You'll know. My pillow? He smiled. You'll know. The light became overwhelming. I had to close my eyes. Pezaram, his voice came one last time. I love you. Not because you earned it. Not because you're good enough. But because you're mine. And nothing, not Reza, not the IRGC, not even death itself, can snatch you from my hand. I woke up gasping. My room was dark. The clock showed 5:47 a.m. Dawn approaching. The muezzin would call soon. But something was different. I could smell it. That same smell from the dream. Like spring. Like flowers. Like life. I sat up quickly and looked at my pillow. There, on the white pillowcase, was a wet stain. Not sweat. I touched it. Cool. Fresh. Tears. But not my tears. These were on the outside of the pillow. Where my face had been pressed. And I hadn't been crying when I fell asleep. I'd been too tired, too defeated for tears. I touched the wet spot again, and the smell intensified. Not perfume. Not rosewater. Something otherworldly. Something that shouldn't exist in Tehran, in my locked room, in the middle of the night. Evidence. Physical, tangible evidence that I hadn't just had a dream. That he'd actually been here. Jesus had been in my room. I fell to my knees beside my bed, and for the first time in my life, I prayed a prayer that wasn't ritual. Wasn't performance. Wasn't trying to earn anything. Jesus, I whispered, barely able to speak through tears. I believe. I believe you're real. I believe you're alive. I believe you love me. I don't know what happens next. I don't know how to navigate tomorrow or Reza or any of this. But I'm yours. I'm completely yours. Whatever it costs. However long it takes. I'm yours. Peace flooded through me. That peace I'd been searching for. Not absence of fear, I was still terrified of tomorrow. But peace underneath the fear. Solid. Unshakable. The peace that passes understanding that Paul wrote about in Philippians. The muezzin's call echoed across Tehran. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. God is greater. And I smiled through my tears. Because yes, God was greater. Greater than Islam. Greater than the regime. Greater than fear. But it wasn't Allah. It was Jesus. And he'd just proven that he was real, he was alive, and he was with me. Whatever came next, Ashura, persecution, whatever, I wouldn't face it alone. The living God had claimed me as his son. And nothing could take that away. That day, Ashura, was the longest day of my life. I moved through it like a ghost. Like I was inhabiting two realities simultaneously. The physical reality of Tehran, of my family, of the approaching ceremony. And the spiritual reality of what had happened in my room, of Jesus' presence, of the tear-stained pillow I'd hidden in my closet because I couldn't bring myself to wash away the evidence. My mother made halim for breakfast, that traditional wheat and meat porridge we always ate on Ashura. The smell of cinnamon and cardamom filled the apartment. Normally, I loved halim. Today, I could barely taste it. Eat, Pezaram, my mother urged. You'll need strength for tonight. Tonight. The ceremony. The performance I'd have to give. Reza sat across from me, still in his IRGC uniform. He hadn't changed clothes since arriving yesterday. A power play. A reminder of who he was. What he represented. You look pale, he said, studying me. Didn't sleep well? I slept fine, I lied. Good. Because tonight, everyone will be watching. The whole neighborhood. Everyone will see who truly honors Hussein. The threat wasn't subtle. It didn't need to be. My father nodded approvingly. Reza is right. Tonight is important. Not just for us, but for our reputation. For our standing in the community. We are a family of believers. Of revolutionaries. We must show that. I nodded and pushed the halim around my bowl. The day dragged. I went through the motions. Helped my mother prepare food for the evening gathering. Listened to my father and Reza discuss politics, the regime's latest crackdowns on Western influence, the importance of vigilance against internal enemies. They're everywhere now, Reza said. The munafiqin. Hypocrites who pretend to be Muslim but secretly worship the West. We've arrested 3 in my district this month alone. One of them was using a VPN to access Christian websites. My blood ran cold. What happened to him? My father asked. Evan prison. Ward 209. He'll be dealt with according to Sharia law. Apostasy. The death penalty. Reza looked at me. You don't use VPNs, do you, brother? No, I said. The lie tasted like ash. Of course not. Good. Because you never know who's watching. The Savama has algorithms now. They can track everything. Every website. Every download. Every suspicious search. He smiled. Technology serves the revolution. I excused myself, claimed I needed to use the bathroom. Locked myself inside and fought to breathe normally. Panic clawed at my chest. They can track everything. Had they tracked me? Did they know about my secret phone? My downloads? My late-night research? Was Reza playing with me? Did he already know? I splashed cold water on my face and looked at myself in the mirror. The same mirror where I'd had that breakdown weeks ago. But something was different now. Yes, I was terrified. But underneath the terror, that peace remained. That solid, unshakable peace from this morning's encounter. I am with you. Always. Jesus' words from the dream echoed in my mind. I straightened up. Took a deep breath. Whatever happened tonight, I wasn't alone. Sunset came too quickly. We dressed in black, the color of mourning. My father wore his Basij headband. Reza kept his uniform on. My mother and sister covered themselves in full chatters. And I put on a plain black shirt, knowing it would probably be torn or bloodied by the end of the night. The neighborhood Husseiniya was already packed when we arrived. Hundreds of men and boys in the main hall. Women in the separate section behind a partition. Black banners hung from every surface. The names of the imams. The martyrs of Karbala. Ya Hussein written in blood-red calligraphy. The air was thick with incense and anticipation and something else, a collective hysteria building toward release. We found our place. My father greeted friends. Reza stood like a soldier, surveying the crowd. I tried to make myself invisible. The Mada, the eulogy reciter, took his position. An older man, famous for his voice, his ability to make even the hardest men weep. He began with a poem. In Farsi, but with Arabic phrases woven through. A lament for Hussein. For his family. For the tragedy of Karbala. His voice cracked with emotion. Real or performed, I couldn't tell anymore. Maybe both. The chest beating started slowly. Rhythmic. Building. Thump. 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 Hundreds of palms striking hundreds of chests in unison. The sound was primal. Hypnotic. I joined in. What else could I do? But with every strike, I felt like I was betraying the encounter from this morning. Betraying Jesus. Betraying the truth. This is just survival, I told myself. Jesus said not to become a martyr today. This is just survival. But it felt like denial. The Mada's recitation intensified. He described the battle. Hussein surrounded. Outnumbered. Thirsty. His infant son killed in his arms. His brother cut down. His friends martyred. And still he stood, the Mada cried. Still he fought. For truth. For justice. For Allah. The crowd roared. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. The chest beating became violent. Men stripped off their shirts. Some brought out zanjir, metal chains with blades attached. They began striking their backs. The sound of metal on flesh. The sight of blood. I closed my eyes. Kept beating my chest. Kept chanting. But inside, I was praying. Not to Hussein. Not to Allah. Jesus, help me. Get me through this. Please. The ceremony went on for hours. At some point, they distributed chai and dates. A brief respite. Men stood in groups, discussing the recitation, weeping openly, embracing each other in shared grief. Reza appeared beside me. You're not beating very hard, he observed quietly. My chest is sore from last week, I said. Everyone's chest is sore. That's the point. The pain is how we honor Hussein's suffering. I know. I'll try harder. He studied me. You've changed. My heart stopped. What? Since I found that thing on your phone. You've been different. Distant. Like you're here but not really here. I've just been stressed. University. Exams. Exams. He didn't believe me. You know what I think? I think you're still struggling. Still infected with doubt. And you're too proud to admit it. I'm not. Tomorrow, he interrupted. Tomorrow, you and I are going to have a conversation. A real one. And you're going to tell me the truth about what's in your heart. Understand? It wasn't a question. Understand? He repeated. Yes, I whispered. He walked away, leaving me trembling. Tomorrow. He was giving me one more day. One more night. And then, what? Interrogation? Arrest? Would he turn me into his own commanders? The ceremony resumed. The final crescendo. The climax of Ashura. The Mada described Hussein's final moments. His martyrdom. His sacrifice. And the crowd descended into frenzy. Men wailed. Beat themselves bloody. The Zanjir chains flew. Blood spattered the floors, the walls, the people nearby. It was chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos nonetheless. And in the middle of it, surrounded by hundreds of people lost in religious ecstasy, I felt utterly, completely alone. No. Not alone. Because even here, even in this temple of death worship, I felt him. Jesus. Present. Close. I am with you. Even here. Even now. We returned home around midnight. Exhausted. My chest was bruised purple. My voice was hoarse from chanting. My mind was numb from the sensory overload. My father was satisfied. You did well tonight, he said. Hussein would be pleased. Reza said nothing. Just watched me. I went to my room, closed the door, and collapsed on my bed. My phone, my regular phone, buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Tonight. Come to the address below. Come alone. Tell no one. A friend. Below was an address in South Tehran. A district I didn't know well. My hands shook holding the phone. This was it. A trap. Savama. They knew. They'd been monitoring me. And now they were summoning me. I could ignore it. Pretend I never got the message. But if it was Savama, they'd just come for me anyway. At least if I went voluntarily, maybe I'd have some control. Some dignity. I waited until 2 a.m. Until the apartment was silent. Until even Reza was asleep. Then I slipped out. The streets of Tehran at night are a different world. Darker. Emptier. More dangerous. Fewer cameras but more Basij patrols looking for immoral activity. I took a taxi, paid cash, gave the driver the address. He looked at me strangely. You sure? That's not a good neighborhood. I'm sure. We drove through empty streets. Past sleeping buildings. Past Revolutionary Guard checkpoints. My heart pounded the entire way. The address was an old apartment building. Soviet style. Concrete. Crumbling. The kind of place where people minded their own business because everyone had something to hide. I climbed to the 3rd floor. Found the apartment number. Knocked quietly. The door opened immediately. Like they'd been waiting. A man stood there. Late 40s. Ordinary looking. He smiled. You came. Good. Come in quickly. I hesitated. It's safe, he said. I promise. You're among friends. Friends? What friends? But I stepped inside. The apartment was small. Sparsely furnished. And there were people. Maybe 10 of them. Sitting in a circle. Young and old. Men and women. All looking at me with expressions of understanding. Welcome, brother, the man said, closing the door. My name is Davud. And this, he gestured to the group, is the house church. House church. Underground Christians. Persians who'd left Islam for Jesus. How did you? I couldn't form words. We've been watching you, Davud said gently. Not the Savama way. The Holy Spirit way. One of us works at the internet cafe you've been using. She saw your searches. Your downloads. And she told me. We've been praying for you. Waiting for the right time to make contact. A woman spoke up. Maybe 30 years old. Kind eyes. We know you had an encounter. Jesus told us in prayer last night. He said you met him in a dream. During Ashura. My legs almost gave out. How could you possibly? Because Jesus is real, she said simply. And he speaks. And he told us you'd need us tonight. I sat down heavily. These people, these strangers, knew everything. And they weren't Savama. They weren't enemies. They were family. You're in danger, Davud said. Your brother suspects. He's IRGC. He won't hesitate to arrest you. You probably have 24 hours. Maybe less. I know, I whispered. So we have options. We can get you out of Iran. We have contacts. Smugglers who help persecuted Christians escape through Kurdistan into Turkey. It's dangerous, but possible. Leave Iran? Or, he paused, you can stay. Keep hiding. Keep pretending. But eventually, they'll catch you. They always do. I looked around at the faces in this room. All of them former Muslims. All of them risking death just by being here. Just by believing in Jesus. How do you do it? I asked. How do you live with this fear? An older man spoke. Gray beard. Gentle voice. We don't live with fear. We live with faith. Yes, the danger is real. But so is Jesus. More real than the IRGC. More real than Evan prison. More real than death itself. But your families. Most of us have lost them, he said quietly. Parents who disowned us. Siblings who reported us. Children we can't see. The cost is real. Jesus never lied about that. But, he smiled, what we've gained is worth infinitely more. They began sharing their testimonies. Quickly. Urgently. Like they knew time was short. The woman who'd spoken earlier, her husband turned her in. She spent 6 months in Evan. Solitary confinement. Psychological torture. They threatened to rape her. To kill her children. But she didn't break. And eventually, through a legal technicality, she was released. They wanted me to deny Jesus, she said. Sign a paper. Simple. But I couldn't. Not after he'd revealed himself to me. Not after he'd given me peace even in that cell. Death seemed better than denying him. A young guy, maybe 20. His father was an Ayatollah. His uncle was high-ranking IRGC. He'd been groomed for religious leadership. Then Jesus appeared to him during Muharram. He'd been in hiding for 2 years now, cut off from his family, working odd jobs, meeting with this group. I lost everything, he said. But I gained Christ. And that's not a trade, that's a miracle. Story after story. Persecution. Miracles. Jesus showing up in dreams, in visions, in impossible circumstances. These people were living proof. Jesus was real. Worth everything. Worth the cost. We prayed together. In Farsi. Simple prayers. They didn't sound like Islamic prayer, no formal prostrations, no memorized phrases. Just conversation with Jesus. Like he was in the room with us. And he was. I felt his presence as strongly as I had in my dream. Maybe stronger. Because now he was here through his people. His body. His church. Around 4 a.m., David pulled me aside. You need to decide, he said. Stay or leave. We can help either way. But you need to decide soon. How long do I have? Your brother is planning something. The Holy Spirit showed us. Tomorrow, today, he's going to make his move. Either come to Jesus publicly, or he turns you in. Those are your options. I felt the vice tightening. If you want to escape, David continued, we can arrange it for tonight. You don't go home. You come with us. We hide you for a few days, then move you north toward Kurdistan. 2 weeks, maybe 3, and you're in Turkey. From there, asylum somewhere. And if I go home? You face whatever comes. Maybe your family. Maybe arrest. Maybe a miracle. We'll keep praying. But the risk is higher. I thought about my mother. My sister. I hadn't even said goodbye. I can't just disappear, I said. They'll think I was kidnapped. They'll suffer. They'll suffer more when you're executed, David said bluntly. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm trying to be realistic. The regime doesn't show mercy to apostates. Especially when their brother is IRGC. He was right. I knew he was right. But leaving without warning, without explanation, without giving Jesus one more chance to work a miracle. I need to go home, I heard myself say. I need to. I don't know. Trust Jesus. See what he does. He came to me for a reason. Showed me that he's real for a reason. Maybe there's still a miracle coming. David looked at me with respect and sadness. Maybe. I hope so. But take this, he handed me a slip of paper with a phone number. Emergency line. If you need us, call. Day or night. We'll come. I took it. Memorized it. Burned the paper in their sink. Then I left that apartment, that house church, that glimpse of the family I could have. And I went home to face whatever came next. I slipped back into my apartment just before dawn. No one had noticed I was gone. I collapsed on my bed fully clothed. House church. Underground Christians. Persians who'd left Islam for Jesus. How did you? I couldn't form words. We've been watching you, David said gently. Not the Savama way. The Holy Spirit way. One of us works at the internet cafe you've been using. She saw your searches. Your downloads. And she told me. We've been praying for you. Waiting for the right time to make contact. A woman spoke up. Maybe 30 years old. Kind eyes. We know you had an encounter. Jesus told us in prayer last night. He said you met him in a dream. During Ashura. My legs almost gave out. How could you possibly? Because Jesus is real, she said simply. And he speaks. And he told us you'd need us tonight. I sat down heavily. These people, these strangers, knew everything. And they weren't Savama. They weren't enemies. They were family. You're in danger, David said. Your brother suspects. He's IRGC. He won't hesitate to arrest you. You probably have 24 hours. Maybe less. I know, I whispered. So we have options. We can get you out of Iran. We have contacts. Smugglers who help persecuted Christians escape through Kurdistan into Turkey. It's dangerous, but possible. Leave Iran? Or, he paused, you can stay. Keep hiding. Keep pretending. But eventually, they'll catch you. They always do. I looked around at the faces in this room. All of them former Muslims. All of them risking death just by being here. Just by believing in Jesus. How do you do it? I asked. How do you live with this fear? An older man spoke. Gray beard. Gentle voice. We don't live with fear. We live with faith. Yes, the danger is real. But so is Jesus. More real than the IRGC. More real than Evan prison. More real than death itself. But your families. Most of us have lost them, he said quietly. Parents who disowned us. Siblings who reported us. Children we can't see. The cost is real. Jesus never lied about that. But, he smiled, what we've gained is worth infinitely more. They began sharing their testimonies. Quickly. Urgently. Like they knew time was short. The woman who'd spoken earlier, her husband turned her in. She spent 6 months in Evan. Solitary confinement. Psychological torture. They threatened to rape her. To kill her children. But she didn't break. And eventually, through a legal technicality, she was released. They wanted me to deny Jesus, she said. Sign a paper. Simple. But I couldn't. Not after he'd revealed himself to me. Not after he'd given me peace even in that cell. Death seemed better than denying him. A young guy, maybe 20. His father was an Ayatollah. His uncle was high-ranking IRGC. He'd been groomed for religious leadership. Then Jesus appeared to him during Muharram. He'd been in hiding for 2 years now, cut off from his family, working odd jobs, meeting with this group. I lost everything, he said. But I gained Christ. And that's not a trade, that's a miracle. Story after story. Persecution. Miracles. Jesus showing up in dreams, in visions, in impossible circumstances. These people were living proof. Jesus was real. Worth everything. Worth the cost. We prayed together. In Farsi. Simple prayers. They didn't sound like Islamic prayer, no formal prostrations, no memorized phrases. Just conversation with Jesus. Like he was in the room with us. And he was. I felt his presence as strongly as I had in my dream. Maybe stronger. Because now he was here through his people. His body. His church. Around 4 a.m., David pulled me aside. You need to decide, he said. Stay or leave. We can help either way. But you need to decide soon. How long do I have? Your brother is planning something. The Holy Spirit showed us. Tomorrow, today, he's going to make his move. Either come to Jesus publicly, or he turns you in. Those are your options. I felt the vice tightening. If you want to escape, David continued, we can arrange it for tonight. You don't go home. You come with us. We hide you for a few days, then move you north toward Kurdistan. 2 weeks, maybe 3, and you're in Turkey. From there, asylum somewhere. And if I go home? You face whatever comes. Maybe your family. Maybe arrest. Maybe a miracle. We'll keep praying. But the risk is higher. I thought about my mother. My sister. I hadn't even said goodbye. I can't just disappear, I said. They'll think I was kidnapped. They'll suffer. They'll suffer more when you're executed, David said bluntly. I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm trying to be realistic. The regime doesn't show mercy to apostates. Especially when their brother is IRGC. He was right. I knew he was right. But leaving without warning, without explanation, without giving Jesus one more chance to work a miracle. I need to go home, I heard myself say. I need to. I don't know. Trust Jesus. See what he does. He came to me for a reason. Showed me that he's real for a reason. Maybe there's still a miracle coming. David looked at me with respect and sadness. Maybe. I hope so. But take this, he handed me a slip of paper with a phone number. Emergency line. If you need us, call. Day or night. We'll come. I took it. Memorized it. Burned the paper in their sink. Then I left that apartment, that house church, that glimpse of the family I could have. And I went home to face whatever came next. I slipped back into my apartment just before dawn. No one had noticed I was gone. I collapsed on my bed fully clothed.